Salutations, bonjour, aloha. My name is Noel Joshua Hadley, and you guys know the avenue, the street you're on. This is the Unexpected Cosmology, and I'm joined tonight with two friends, Nephilim Hunter and JohnQadams. I've had the pleasure of meeting both Nephilim Hunter and JohnQadams in person. And I won't say where I met them. Someplace on this motionless plane, I have met the two of them. And well, I'll go ahead and give. Hopefully, Nephilim Hunter won't mind. He actually came to my house Passover this year, and he's come over many times. And both he and John Q are gentle, kind souls, and very humble people. I love talking to them, being in conversations with them. Now, we're talking tonight about QAnon or QAnon, and it was probably back in the spring of 2020. I think it was February, and that the big psychodrama was happening across the earth. You guys know what that was. It had to do with Dr. Fauci and so on and so forth. And I was really getting into QAnon back then. Research. I spent like I remember 1 week. Like if I spend a whole week just night and day looking into something, I'm really getting serious about it. And I started looking into a lot of the QAnon stuff, and then just passionately talking to my wife about it. And then at the end of it, I kind of walked away, and I'm like, not really into it. And I will give some of those reservations, maybe talk about it a little bit later on. And on this channel, on this website, The Unexpected Cosmology, I have not talked about QAnon much. And John Q, I don't even remember the first time he came to this channel. It was a little over a year ago, and he's been writing some articles here, publishing them here, called Q plus the Millennial Kingdom, and some great stuff. And we finally agreed to give him his own his own chat room in here, just discussing QAnon. And it finally came to this Passover, when Nephilim Hunter came over to my house, and we were talking late into the night, and he was wondering where I was at on the whole Q situation. And, I wasn't completely kind to it. I had a lot of reservations, and he started saying some things that I had to kind of fall back and kind of on some of my points and go, you know what? I kind of secede there. On those points, I think you're right. And I started finding that I had way more in common with, I don't want to give a percentage. I don't know if it's 90%, 95, 99%, 75. I don't know what it is, but I have way more in common and agree with way more of the points of what QAnon is pushing than I don't. And so I was really excited to try to get JohnQadams and Nephilim Hunter on here. I called them up immediately or texted them, be like, we got to do a talk, and the three of us together. And so here we are. So here's the point I want to bring up before I bring them on. There has been undoubtedly, hands down, a great awakening taking place. For those of you who have been in the truther realm for a great long while versus those who are new to it, okay? Those of you who have been in a great long while, you're going to probably understand what I'm saying here, that every several years, it's a generational thing maybe, but every several years there's a changing of the guard. And a new class of people come in talking about things that, it just blows everything out of the water. And the people from 7 to 10 to 15, 20 years, people who've been in it a long time, some people, they get so stuck on what they were talking about back then, they can't move on. And there has been a great awakening here with the QAnon movements, and I can't deny that. I've seen more people waking up over the last few years than at any other time. So it's been an incredible behold. I want to bring you guys on. And this is a great segue because we're going to be talking, hopefully tonight, we're going to work the conversation into how the Millennial Kingdom, the short season, works together with QAnon. That's where the two of you come in. So in 1 minute, just 1 minute, without writing a college textbook, if you guys can do it together, explain to me or explain to everyone listening, what is QAnon in 1 minute?
JohnQadams, do you want me to go first, or do you want to do it?
Yeah, go for it.
Q to me is really just try to give it a super fast summary. To me, Q is a military operation in military communications. A few drops are possible for not only the military themselves communicating, but also to confirm to us, the public, that certain aspects in this war that we're in right now, that to confirm that it is happening, and also to give us hope so that we can link up this news, these drops, to current news, and then figure that out. Personally, that Q is Trump and Lin Wood. That's what I feel. Now, anything that I tell you guys about Q tonight, just research that on your own. Nothing I'm saying is as far as is it written in hard, in stone. This is what I feel. And through the last couple years, from watching our election stolen on that night of 2020, and I've not watched one day of news since then. One day of mainstream news. I've not even entertained it. I've 100% me. What I believe is that true is Trump and Lin Wood, and then Q on post 60 and drop 60 have the full picture.
Okay, now you mentioned Lin Wood, and I want to talk about him, but before I do so, just to give a better picture of who Lin Wood is and what his part is in this, John Q, over to you. You got like 1 minute to tell me what does Q mean to you, or what is QAnon?
Yeah, Q is a military information dissemination operation. It's designed to create a digital army a digital army that will dig and expose the truth, to go around the mainstream media, the Mockingbird media, which are gatekeepers. So step one, create a digital army that will dig relentlessly in pursuit of the truth, and then get that information out there on all platforms. Step two, that will lead to a great awakening. The people will become aware of what's the truth, what's really going on in this world, and will rise up to, take back their power that is rightfully theirs per divine law. And then three, there is operations that are going on behind the scenes, things that only the military can do. We as everyday people don't have certain capabilities when it comes to being able to remove evil, sick people from the face of this earth. And that's the third part of this. It's a military operation behind the scenes, a worldwide military operation, and Q provides us some insight into some of those goings-ons.
Now, just for clarification purposes, would you both agree if I said that Q is it's intel, but there is intel versus intel? Like there is deep state intel, the bad guys, and then there is, when we talk about the white hats, they're a group of people working against the cabal. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. It would be a group of people within, I would say, within the Defense Intelligence Agency or military intelligence, as opposed to CIA or something like that.
Okay, now Nephilim Hunter, you had brought up Lin Wood, and here is my understanding on Lin Wood. Lin Wood, in 2020, claimed that Trump won the presidency by 70% of the vote, if I'm not mistaken, according to Lin Wood. He claimed that the cabal, there was a conspiracy of a cabal of communist foreign intel, I think from China. It was one of them. There might have been more, but he included China in there, and what we would call Rhino Republicans, that they basically got together to steal the election. He included Georgia Governor Brian Kemp in there, and Secretary of State Brad if I can pronounce his name right, Raffensperger, that they were implicated as those who were stealing the election. And one comment by Wood has VP, I think, maybe I'm getting the wrong information. This is for why you guys are here for the conversation. He implicated that Vice President Mike Pence under Trump will be facing a firing squad. I mean, it was kind of maybe an offhanded comment about his involvement, and Senator Majority Mitch McConnell. So tell me about Lin Wood, where he comes into this.
So it was shortly before we lost, the election was stolen, I should say. Before it was stolen, I discovered Lin Wood on, I think it was Parler, and been following him, watching his fireside chats at the time, given a lot of information behind the scenes. Wood's a really well attorney, genius. This guy is amazing. He knows the words that he chooses to a T. He's very, very smart. I mean, just looking at who he's represented in the past, like Richard Jewell, the John Bennett Ramsey case. He's, everything that he's done, if you look at his life work, it's been good to bring down the three-letter agencies, to bring down deep state actors. And he not only portrays that in his daily activities in life, but he also continues scripture on his Telegram channel, True Social, Telegram more than True Social, but he is on True Social as well. But everything that, if you look at what Lin has been telling us, it already has happened, or it is happening, and you can just gather, if you just follow what he's saying, there's truth in what he's saying. He's opening, tons of people's eyes. It goes along with the Q drops. It goes along with the Great Awakening, and the whole, just to kind of, as far as when the way he drops the information, in exposing deep state actors, Rhino Republicans, whoever it may be, he does it in a way that is, it ignites your curiosity and wants you to actually research it on your own, to dig in and find out the dirt on these politicians that are dirty. And basically, this is up. It's like what John Q was saying. The whole thing about Q is to literally bring down Cabal. It's the Luciferian aspects of it, the Freemasonry that's involved with it. Lin will continually post about secret societies and Freemasonry, how it is infiltrated our nation, and how that tied with the secret societies. They're these puppet actors in place, which, that's another topic that I think that we'll probably end up talking about tonight, with the actors, but that are in place. This whole Q operation that I feel Lin Wood is in with Q, with Trump. Their job is to wake everybody up, get the truth out as far as who these people are, what they're doing, and how evil this is. And it's going to be stuff, the evil that is going on, that they're exposing and will expose, is going to be stuff that people aren't going to want to watch. They're not going to want to hear it. As far as the child sex trafficking, the human sex trafficking, the satanic sacrifices that are going on with children, and knowing that's been taking place, that enables the deep state to have the foothold, to have that control over politicians, and then thus controlling them and controlling our country. That he was about, is to bring about the truth about what's going on with our politicians, and how Freemasons, Satanists are controlling our country. what they're doing in the tunnels, what they're doing with the children. It's all about exposing them and bringing that to light, so that everyone can be like, wow, this is, it's going to open everyone's eyes, force everyone, through this whole experience personally. Everything has been so dark. Everyone I'm sure would agree that's even listening tonight. Our country is gone. It's like, it's beyond like fixable at this point. It's got to start from scratch. It's got to be leveled, and it's these deep state players, this all that's running our country now, has got to be taken out by its roots. Got to start from scratch.
And what you just said, what Nephilim Hunter just said, he said something very similar when he was over at my house that actually really started to turn my opinion to, I guess, be more in support of QAnon. And the reason why is I have my reservations, my concerns, things that I think are happening, that I come to different conclusions with Nephilim Hunter and JohnQadams. But what he was just saying there about the Q is showing people how evil and sick, and sadistic these elite rulers, controllers truly are. And any government, because justice is justice, all right? Like, I'll give you guys a quick example. This isn't, we can argue lesser two evils. Would you guys rather live under a government that allows us to meet on Discord, YouTube, places like that, and be able to have these conversations? Or would you rather live under a government that doesn't, right? I would rather live under a government that does. That being said, I would like to live in a government that outlaws abortion, the murder of babies. I would like to live in a government that exposes all the pedophilia and the satanic, practices and just the sick, disgusting things. So that being said, if QAnon, if these guys happen to win the day and they are who they say they are, even if they're not who they say they are, even if they are a different side of the flip of the coin, is kind of more my opinion. If they lead us into if they lead the American society as well as the worldwide society into these things by bringing out more justice and I would say righteous behavior, then I'm all for it. They have my vote in those sense. So, John Q, over to you. Tell me your thoughts on Lin Wood before we move on.
Yeah. So, Lin Wood is definitely speaks truth to power, you could say. Not only is he called out Vice President Pence, he's also called out Chief Justice Roberts. He doesn't pull any punches. I haven't probably, done a lot of looking into Lin Wood's background as much as Neff has. But yeah, he definitely, seems to be involved somehow. And remember, we were talking about PSYOPs. He was definitely a PSYOP. I'm not going to say that the Q operation is not a PSYOP. It's absolutely a PSYOP. We're in a war of PSYOPs. It's a, we have to kind of, I would think the way the military is seeing it is they have to fight fire with fire. So it's a counter-PSYOP, a counter-insurgency, so to speak. And yeah, it is about rooting out corruption at all levels, from all the way from the very top down to, and exposing it down to your local pulpit and school board. And what have we seen? We've seen not only the corruption at high levels being exposed, but we've seen what's going on in our school boards, what's going on in our local pulpits. That's being exposed for everyone to see.
And the way you guys are describing this, also, I when I started looking into QAnon a few years back, I was seeing a lot of like false assumptions, or just people. It seemed like the people I was encountering in the movement, they were treating Q like a crystal ball. Like, Q is going to tell you these things and they're going to happen in this way. But I can respect something more of, like, these are people, intel, that are, they are working behind the scenes to try to bring about a certain effect. Now, General Flynn. Let's talk about this guy. What is his connection to QAnon? Now, I did see a lot of people have been talking about him. I did happen to see the very strange prayer that he was praying, apparently contextually. What I was seeing, I didn't see the part where he mentioned Michael, the archangel. Apparently, that was the context. I don't really know. But the thing that really nabs a lot of people's attention is when he was talking about the sevenfold rays of light. Now, I will say that, so General Flynn, he's up there, he's talking to this whole congregation, and it's not just that he's praying. He's actually saying these lines and having everybody repeat it. That's what I was finding a little bit eerie about it. For those of you who don't know, the sevenfold rays that come straight out of Theosophy, and these sevenfold rays are like, they're how would I would say, writing down in my notes here, they're like these spirit, matter, wave, particle, light substances that compose the created universe. These, according to Theosophy, these 7 rays of light. And so, General Flynn, you guys jump in. Tell me about him.
Yeah. So there's the Q community is very, very divided on General Flynn, and I think you're and which this is what I this tells me that this is a good thing, that we don't all just agree. We're not just all in a box, an echo chamber, right? So General Flynn is one of those things where you're going to find very differing opinions on him. I'm kind of when it comes to General Flynn myself, I'm sitting on, taking a back seat, watching what's going on, eating popcorn. I haven't made up my mind what I think about him. He's done some good things, and he's done some, that prayer, right. That's kind of a very, red flag moment. Now General Flynn is talked about very much in the Q drops. General Flynn is, very much supported by President Trump. General Flynn comes from the intelligence community, specifically the military intelligence community. He ran the show over there for a long time. So the Q operation is exactly the kind of thing that you would expect Flynn would have been involved in. So yeah, this is very much so a psychological warfare, and so you're gonna see games being played by both. The players, by necessity, have to kind of keep each side guessing as to where their true loyalty is. That's kind of one thing that I've learned to recognize. If he has some sort of role still to play, he's got to kind of maintain, some sort of appearances that could be that, or I don't know. I honestly don't know where he's at. I'm sure Neff can probably give some more info, but that's kind of my 2 cents.
Definitely, yeah. Start over to you. What are your thoughts?
So, I'm just gonna shoot it straight here with I think Flynn is a traitor. I think that he's I think there's a reason that Trump only gave him a partial pardon. I think that, is it part of the whole PSYOP thing? Anything's possible, right? But personally, I think that the way that Lin Wood has dropped so much truth about Mike Flynn, I think that he's a mask. I think that they've already taken him out. I think they made that evident with that we saw on giving the 7-ray prayer in front of the congregation, leading the hundreds to pray to fallen angels and these 7. I think that gives us insight to who, I think the White has this insight to who and what kind of character Mike Flynn actually was. And I think that like when you were just talking about the 7 rays, when you actually look into that, and what those 7 rays are based off of, and the Freemasonry that's behind it. There's books that that into that 7-ray garbage, that satanic garbage that Mike Flynn tricked a congregation of hundreds of people into praying to. When people questioned Mike Flynn about it, he tried to pass it off. Oh, well, it was just a prayer in my pocket. I didn't really know what it was about. And I mean, it's all on video. You can watch you can watch the prayer, and there's no way that this was done unintentionally. And if you just read, if you look into some of the 7-ray, the foundation of the 7-ray stuff is taken from off some of the books now. The Masonic Initiation by William Wilmhurst, Initiation Human and Solar by Alice Bailey, On the Christ by David Spangler, So the Christ, and The Masters of Wisdom by Benjamin Krim, Lost Keys of the Freemasonry by Manly Hall, The Externalization of the Hierarchy by Alice Bailey. Those are just like some books there that you can see what this 7 garbage is about. Those are satanic books. Don't even, I'm just trying to give a reference here to what and how deep this goes, right? And I think that they already took Mike Flynn out. The CIA has been using hyper-realistic silicone masks for decades. I think that's the whole Q operation now, is that I think, depending on, the people that are listening tonight, how much they've looked into the background of Q and the possibility of using masks and CGI and what's actually taken place. I think that Mike Flynn's another mask, is what I refer to him as. Yeah.
his pronouns were. And I was going to point that out. You mentioned General Flynn as was, and so this really, I was really getting into this when we were talking about this over at my house, and you were talking about the masks and how Tucker Carlson was a mask, and some of the others you had proposed was Elon Musk and Joe Biden. Interestingly enough, now, so I actually like Tucker Carlson, and ever since we had the discussion, of course, a lot has happened to Tucker Carlson, and I was pointing out to you that the thing that you had said that you had stopped watching media since the election was stolen. It's interesting that I haven't watched the media for years, and I just started watching it recently, and part of that is because I have a baby daughter, and I'm just like sitting there like, what do I do with her? Oh, I guess I'll turn on the TV and see what they're saying. And I'm just blown away. I was telling you, I was blown away by the things that Tucker Carlson is saying. I'm like, you're not supposed to say stuff like that. You're not supposed to talk about chemtrails and the reptilians and, the people dying suddenly. And like, what is going on with this guy? And so ever since you mentioned he was a mask, I get my wife from the TV, and I'm like, tell me that guy doesn't look like a robot. And just quick background here for everyone. It's probably been about 15 years now. My wife, Sarah, and I, we went to a demonstration at Disneyland, of all places, in Tomorrowland. They brought out on stage there a robot. And so this is about 15 years ago. And they said that this robot was about 20 years old technology. And so we're looking at about 35-year-old technology now. And this robot came out, and it was shocking, disturbing on so many levels. That the way it would talk back, and it would order pizza and walk up the stairs, and I was just waiting for it to like pick up a gun and go shoot some the owner while they slept or something like that. So I'm watching Tucker Carlson. I'm like, this guy looks like an animatronic. And then of course they they recall him back because he like had short circuit or something like that. So tell me guys about the mask.
Yeah.
It's in a way.
Yeah, and I'll drop this in chat. I could definitely see absolutely that the Flynn that we see now is a mask, and an actor, one of his roles, and I would say he would be a white hat actor, and the reason I say that is what I just put in chat here. This is kind of one of the ways that Trump likes to communicate. Like nothing that Trump does is everything has meaning, and Q is in fact has taught us everything has meaning. So we have here, Vernon Jones and Trump, and there's a black hat behind him on that table, and the same table with the Flynn that we see today, who I could absolutely agree is an actor that's replaced the real one, and that he's starting to try to, expose who the real one was, and where that comes in is, some people were given a deal if they turned on others that were higher up, and that basically what that deal was is, you get to live out your life in prison, but you're gonna be on a very short lease. You're gonna do everything that we tell you you're gonna do, and the moment you mess up, deal's over, and the leash is yanked back. So Flynn and others maybe were not given a deal, and they were executed, and they were replaced by an actor or an actress. And Flynn could be one of those people. And so now it's the actor or actress's job to expose who that person really was. And Biden is, you can compare the ears, you can compare all of his facial features. They try to say, oh, it was, a facelift or something. Yeah, no, there's different actors with Biden. You can see that at one point, there's a video of Biden talking, and he's sounding very hoarse, but he's sounding exactly like, oh shoot, what's his name? From Ocean's 11, the main
Clooney.
George Clooney, yes, identical to George Clooney, right? Like what's going? And that's the same video where he's not blinking. It's very weird. I'm sure many of you remember that. There's been, from what I can see, maybe 3 or 4 different actors playing Joe Biden.
Too bad they can't have Martin Sheen play Joe Biden since he's already played the president. I have seen the footage of Joe Biden where it's like clearly like a digital. Like his hand goes through the microphone, and I was about to do that, but then I would knock my microphone over aside of me. And what I have not seen is apparently the footage, and maybe you guys have, where like you can see on his neck, like it looks like a mask you can rip off. Have you guys seen that footage?
Yes.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to just make it up. I've heard that on the the rumor mill that it's out there. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I can actually, I have it. I'll pop it in the chat here. Yeah.
I don't want to cut you off. I want to jump in with Biden, with the people that say, oh, he had plastic surgery. And does that plastic surgery then include on, the earlobe attaching and reattaching and deattaching? Because on Monday it will be attached, and then on Tuesday it's deattached, and then on Wednesday it's attached again. So it's not a plastic surgery that's going on. You can see that depending on who the actor is and what mask they're wearing, it's showing you different. They're showing us that this is not a real person. And depending on the situation, if it's going to be, if it's televised, that's going to be, there's going to be CGI involved, obviously. So a live, he's out in, public eye. That's, they bring in the actor and the mask. And depending on who that actor and mask is at that given day, you find the earlobe attached on Monday or deattached on Wednesday, or whatever the case may be. That's why it's always different. That's why you can see, like Noel, what you were just mentioning with the neckline, so prevalent. You can see the chin and neckline in these different masks. It's hilarious if you really think about it, that it's so right in your face. People are just oblivious to it.
I've seen the footage too, where he's like walking from a helicopter. He looks like a total cartoon. It doesn't even look real. And like all these photographers are out there taking this picture, and I'm looking at this, going, "Are they even taking a picture of anybody?" Because this, but then the Biden administration as a whole. I mean, we've all seen where he's taken the prick, the juice prick, in like a it's the Oval Office, but it's on a stage. It's not even the Oval Office. Like the whole thing is just weird. It's the weirdest administration I've ever read or experienced in my lifetime. Is there, so Elon Musk, okay? So you guys believe that he is a mask as well? Is he dead? Is he in prison? What happened to Elon Musk?
It's anybody's guess. I think that Elon's one of those characters that if you dive into his history of a person, it's evil. It's like there's lots of like criminal activity and things of that nature that most likely took place. He was not a good guy. That's why if you look at his profile pic on Twitter, you can see Baphomet on his jacket, right? And wearing different things like New World Order. I think he's completely 100% white hat controlled masked actor. And even I John Q a couple of his tweets recently. Elon out of nowhere he tweets out checkmate, and that's like a famous Q drop. And then just after that he tweeted out a brave new world, another Q drop, and it's the things that he's done. And then he just sent up his rocket blowing up into the firmament. I mean, it's there's so much stuff going on that I feel that it's obviously white hat military. When I say white hat, I'm referring to military, not wizards or something that or new age stuff that some people might say. And that's another thing about a lot of people think Q is like new age or a cult, and that's the furthest thing from it of what this is about. It's not about any kind of new age thing. This is literally military operation. When you look at it through that lens, things start to fall into place, and it gives you a better understanding of what's going on.
And they're operating by the military law of war. So the military law of war manual, the Q drops reference that they never actually they never state the words, the phrase, or the military law of war manual, but they reference like 11.4, 11.8, 11.3, and Anons have figured out that he's talking about sections in the military law of war manual, and it's everyone should read that. It was rewritten in 2015, and it sheds a lot of light on what's going on now and how what you would expect to see in a military occupation of a foreign nation state.
There's a lot we still want to cover tonight, and the night's moving on. Before we move away from Elon Musk, so the rocket just exploded. That happened the last couple of days, I think, and I've been a little bit out of touch with the news. But I remember I think it was his other rocket. It was 2018, I think it was, probably spring of 2018. And I actually flew back to California with my wife. We're in Long Beach, California. We went to California Pizza Kitchen, I think it was, and when the rocket, like it brushed up against the firmament, and it made that huge like wave ripple that kind of freaked everyone out. I think that was his as well. But anyways, Nephilim Hunter, you texted me last week that he tweeted checkmate. You didn't give me an explanation on that. What does that mean?
It's literally, I think it was just code that that Q and the military are at the end stage of this. I think that things are, and if you look at what's going on in the world with, Russia, Ukraine, which Russia's the good guy, China, Taiwan, which China's the good guy, and, Ukraine and Taiwan have the bioweapon labs. That's why the whole thing is going in, the militaries are going in, they're destroying these bioweapon labs. So the deep state doesn't have the control and power over unleashing that garbage, whatever it may be. It's, a chemical warfare, or, whatever the front page headline would be. There's something going on where they have some kind of poison there. whether it's biological or chemical or whatever it may be. That's what my feelings are of what's going on with the war on the top level. But just to try to wrap that together, it's with the whole checkmate thing. I think that it is now they're telling us literally that, okay, we won, just like in a game. You know that they won. Now the enemy, maybe the enemy is just procrastinating, or maybe they're just wrapping some finalities up. But I think that we're here. I think that literally, things could be wrapping up at any point. John Q,
yeah, it ties in with. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I was going to ask you how much time we have left. Now, that's always a dangerous question, because you know how all wars, they always say, like, we'll have the troops home by Christmas, and then 5 years later, right, cities are still burning down. But what kind of timeline are we looking at here in your estimation? Before there's tribunals, there's, public expositions as to the crimes people have committed. What are we looking at?
It all depends on how long it takes for a large enough majority of people to wake up to what is going on in this world and what their controllers have been doing for centuries, before we can see any of that. Like, if people just were presented with, yeah, it is. If people were just presented with the truth, like, boom, there's some sort of EBS, and everyone was forced to watch like these trials and executions, and all the evidence is presented about everything that's gone on, there would be literally thousands of people dying from shock. Imagine if you woke up, you're a normie, you wake up in the morning, and all of your favorite celebrities and all of your favorite politicians and all of your favorite sports stars, you find out that they are sick people. Like, and that's not even the half of it. Like, unfortunately, I think that's what we're looking at.
No, I do agree with you, John Q. Now, Nephilim Hunter, it seems like maybe you guys have varying opinions here, because you would say that we're coming up on tribunals, correct?
I think that any happen at this point, tomorrow, or it could be at the end of the year. The funny thing is, I thought, at Biden's fake inauguration, I thought that the military would step in and stop it. And then after each year, Christmas would come around or something like that, and I'd think that, okay, this is going to happen now. It's kind of to the point where, like John Q was saying, I think it's a matter of not only the waking up, but I think we're waiting for something else to sync up event-wise, whether that's something celestial, or if it's something where they're waiting for the war to trigger, and whether or not, that you can look at that in different aspects. There's so many different categories of talk that this could go down with, nukes and everything. But as far as when this could transpire, I think it could happen at any point. I think it could happen tomorrow. I think it could happen by the end of the year. All it is that I can tell you, like, wise, of what I feel, and I feel obviously we're closer than we've ever been, because it hasn't happened yet. But it's that I just have a feeling it'll happen at any point. But I think they're waiting for some kind of event to trigger and sync up, where everything kind of correlates together. And obviously here we're closer than we ever have been at this point. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, now obviously, see, my understanding of human behavior is that I think that if they were to next week, whatever, even by the end of the year, basically come out and say, here is everybody's crimes, we're going to try them, and people would rebel. Human nature is to rebel. In fact, that's one of the things Paul says in Romans, that I think in chapter 5, that wherever the Torah is, that sin increases, right? Because people, rebel against it, right? It actually caused more sin. And so I think my suggestion on this, if I were king of the world, Noel Joshua Hadley, and I'm calling the shots, and I'm like, how do I cause the people to wake up and not get assassinated? I'd probably get assassinated for this, but I would just I would prove that there's a firmament. I would just say, look, everybody, here, I'm coming out. Here's declassified documents. Here's video proof. We'll send anything you want up. We'll prove it. Boom. That would just start waking people would flip out. Yes, but it would start the wake up process really quickly. Okay. There's one of the things you guys had pointed out to me. You guys want to talk about tonight was Q references in movies. Now, I'm not exactly sure where you're going with this, but you had mentioned a few, like let's see, Atlas Shrugged, Fringe. I haven't seen either one of those movies, just so you know. You mentioned the Batman trilogy. I'm assuming you mean the Christopher Nolan films.
Yeah, the recent Batman trilogy with Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested to hear about those. And I know that I did a lot of film analysis back. I used to do a lot of film analysis, and those are clearly post 9/11 Bush era movies, and as well as the whole Wall Street protests and everything. But I was thinking of the Batman movie that came out like a year ago, which was in my opinion, very QAnon, where you had the Riddler was basically a quote unquote truther. Here, I'm not flashing gang signs and doing little bunny ear quotes. And he's going around exposing the evil elite. And he's bringing in these internet truthers to help him commit his crimes, to kill and assassinate these people. To me, it felt like Hollywood's coming on saying, this is what the QAnon people are trying to do, and they're the evil ones. It was kind of interesting because, to give away the plot for anyone who hasn't seen it, is that Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, finds that his father, Thomas Wayne, was actually one of these evil elites, and that he actually had someone murdered. And Batman, who's trying to bring about justice through fear, has to deal with the fact that, is he a hypocrite? Because his own money, his riches come from he's a part of the cabal. And so it was a fascinating perspective from the from the elite telling us, the Riddler, this is QAnon. At least that's my take on it. So I'd like to hear you guys' take on some of these movies.
Yeah. So and definitely that also is the one you just talked about, the most recent Batman. Yeah, I would say you're probably right on point with that. The reason I wanted to bring up the Batman trilogy is, go back and watch the Batman trilogy now and tell me how many connections and how many parallels or analogies you can draw in the Batman trilogy to Bruce Wayne and Donald Trump since he emerged on the political scene. And you'll start seeing all kinds of connections going on there.
Give me a few of them.
Okay. So let's see.
I'm not seeing it yet. I'm not saying I don't believe it. I just don't see it yet. So
yeah. Well, for one, he had to. For one. Well, an obvious easy connection is, they're both rich men. The another connection is Batman had to, in order to save the city, he had to actually, go away, disappear, step out, step back, right? He had to kind of relinquish his control over it. And that's exactly
and he became like a symbol, right? Like an emblem, and with the whole revealing of the statue in the third one, right. Yeah. The movement, he created a movement.
Yes, he created a movement. That's kind of what President Trump has done. He's in, at least publicly, in the mainstream, he stepped down. He did not. Everyone was like, Trump is gonna, bring in the military and establish himself. It's gonna be a coup, right? That was the whole thing after January 6th. It was gonna be a coup, but no, President Trump didn't do it. He stepped down. It appeared to just relinquish control of the presidency to the real coup. That's what it appears. But when you start diving into that, you're going to see that maybe he didn't really do that.
Well, I've always been, Nephilim Hunter, I don't know if you have any take on these movies. I've always been really fascinated with the Mission Impossible movies. And yeah, I mean, it's, kind of a superficial spy versus spy thing, amongst, elite society. Kind of I've always liked them better than the James Bond films, by the way. Now, it's actually one of the most glass half empty narratives most people don't realize. In the first Mission Impossible film, I think it came out like 1995, there was, of course, Tom Cruise, who plays Ethan Hunt. He finds out that Jim Phelps, who is the leader of his IMF team, is actually the bad guy, and he finally has to take him out. And the ending of the film, Tom Cruise is sitting there in his seat, and then he is the new Jim Phelps, and it's actually telling you that the theme of these movies is that these spy agencies, according to this universe, only exist to take out their own. They create the bad guys, and then they have to keep taking them out, and eventually, as the dominoes fall, Tom Cruise will become the bad guy. Now, what's interesting is that they're coming out with the new final 2-part movie starting this summer. And for those of you who have seen the trailer, the guy, the character named by Eugene Kittredge comes back. He was in the first film. He was the guy who spoke on the tape that would self-destruct. This is your mission if you choose to accept it. And he disappeared. Well, he's back now, and it makes it out like he has ditched IMF. This is the actual saying. I think this ties in with the whole QAnon thing. This is his actual saying in the trailer. I was watching this earlier today. I wrote this down. He says to Tom Cruise, "Your days of fighting for the so-called greater good are over. This is our chance to control the truth, the concepts of right and wrong for everyone for centuries to come. You're fighting to save an ideal that doesn't exist. Never did you need to pick a side." And so the idea is that, like, Tom Cruise, it'll be interesting to see how they frame this, because this IMF is like he's fighting for the elite society, right? For all the whole cabal. He's fighting to keep that system in place. And now it looks like all the bad guys that have been defecting, like, they're the ones that are trying to expose the evils of what he's trying to protect. So it'll be interesting. Anyways, Nephilim Hunter, do you have anything to throw in here?
Yeah, actually, and to tie in the movies and or TV shows that I wanted to kind of bring up briefly, I wanted just to take a step back and just talk about Looking Glass, because it will tie into it, and that's a thing of what Q refers to as Looking Glass. It's in drop 9 and drop 3585. There's all kinds of conjecture and ideas of what Looking Glass, what they're referring. And I have some ideas along with lots of other people. And I think that a few of those would involve time travel, projection, quantum computing, maybe even something to do with Yush and the Saints, possibly after the millennial reign. But I think that it's probably most likely what Q is referring to as Looking Glass would come down to technology and whether it's time travel aspects or actually looking into something to see an outcome, whether it's quantum computing or if it's something that would be an actual device that a screen, say, that with whatever tech they're using enables look into and see, not occult wise as far as like technology aspects of things, and seeing and maybe that in conjunction with quantum computing, whatever the case may be. There are all kinds of ideas of what Looking Glass is, what they're talking about. I think that, and this goes hand in hand, and the reason I bring this up is because this goes hand in hand with Donald Trump's uncle, right? His name was John Trump. John Trump, he was a genius. He's an electrical engineer, inventor, physicist, professor at MIT from 1906 to 1973. Well, anyways, he was called in by the FBI after Tesla's death in 1943. The FBI called him in. dealing with what was considered alien property custodian to seize Tesla's belongings and find out if there is, any kind of danger or, any kind of national security aspects of that. John Trump was called in to analyze documents, artifacts, things of that nature. And that was Trump's uncle, right? And so you're kind of like, well, take him back. Even when I found that, I was like, what the heck is this about? Is when I kind of like wonder, like, okay, what is, how are they these Q drops of information, and then it's linking up with current news that, some kind of drop of information that happened, 4 years ago ended up news that came out yesterday. How are they doing this, right? And so that kind of goes hand in hand with Looking Glass and what they're doing. What is this? What is this tech or whatever they're doing to link up these Q drops to current news that's just breaking. And so the reason I bring that kind of stuff up is that I think that they've been, whether programming or Easter eggs or whatever the case may be, that they're dropping information or hints in different movies. A few different movies that I wanted to bring up when I think that this is just bizarre when it comes to Looking Glass and time travel, or whatever they're doing. One of the things that I felt was very strange was Avengers Endgame, right? When they showed Doctor Strange, I think that they were trying to show us that was Tesla. I think that when they showed Iron Man, that was Trump. And he asks Strange, he's like, and he asks them, they're like, how are we going to beat Thanos and, beat this evil? How many ways are there? And they ask him how many possible answers he saw, and Strange replies he saw 14,605,000. And then Iron Man's like, well, how many did we win? And then Strange replies like, only one. And so I think that they're trying to like bring out and imply, look, we saw all these different kind of outcomes of how this could play out. The only way that we could win is this one way. And I think it had to tie into the whole Operation Warp Speed, the whole garbage vaccination crap that went on. And I think that Trump had to take the lesser, and when it comes down to, what did he have? Was the choice to, let like, a couple million people die, or like, 5 billion people die. And I don't think that he had a choice that was going to be no death. That he had to take the lesser of two evils, and in doing so, bring the deep state down once and for all, and rid our Earth of evil people as much as he could. And I think that's the whole premise behind this. And
I'm glad you brought up Operation Warp Speed. I was going to bring it up, and you had told me that same explanation a few weeks back, and I was kind of speechless. I'm like, okay. I mean, it really is hard for me to claim anybody could be a good man and do what he did. However, your explanation of basically he's like, his back is to the corner, and he's got no out on this, and he's saying that. I remember in 2020 when the CDC is putting out there, like, they're saying this is the new norm, and we're going to be, they put out charts for like the next 5 to 10 years, how these new viruses are going to spring up and roll out, and we're going to all get locked down every 3 to 6 months, and they're just going to keep doing it. And I'm just looking at this going like this is like hell, And so from the perspective that, like the title implies, Operation Warp Speed, that he because I remember back with a lot of us do, back with the AIDS quote unquote crisis, Dr. Fauci was in that one too, and they put out the AZT drug, a terrible drug that killed many people, and they basically, of course, that drug was rejected by for cancer research by the Drug Administration back in 1970, I think it was. And they basically withheld that for several years. They had the drug that was going to kill a bunch of people. They withheld it. They played out this whole psychodrama, and then they finally started feeding it to people, and they were lining up, gimme, 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 and they're dropping over. So the idea that he pushed out this prick as quickly as he did, it seems like his back was in the corner, and he's playing their hand, right?
He forced their hand. Yep.
Yeah, forced their hand.
Exactly it.
Okay, good. All right. And I have a lot to say on Looking Glass. I just gave I actually said to you, Nephilim Hunter, because you had brought it up to me. I'm like, I was a little spooked. I'm like, did you know I just gave a presentation on that like 2 nights ago or something like that? Because I gave a huge presentation on Looking Glass. So, guys, tell me about the time traveling Trumps. Do you believe that potentially that he is a time traveler? Because I've seen that talk within the QAnon circles.
I do.
I think it's possible.
Yeah, I think it's possible. Not only him, but his daughter,
Barron for sure.
Ivanka, Barron.
Yep.
There's just so much out there. You hit on some of it, Noel, in your presentation a few weeks ago. There's even more out there on that. And one of the things there is someone out there has put together some. There's actually more than just one person. There's been several that have put together some things showing how Trump potentially he the likely scenario of how, when the military approached him in what I think it was 2015 or whatever it was, that the military approached Trump and convinced him that to run for president. At some point they read him in, and that day Trump he brought him into Cheyenne Mountain. Trump would have probably gone back in time. A day later he would have gone back in time a day. And brought his younger self with him, and then they would have sent that guy into the future. But you'll see at his rallies how they will have people behind Trump at his rallies, and people have matched up like an older version of Trump, like two or three different versions of Trump. You can see this guy looks like a very much older Trump. He's got Secret Service agents around. Like, there's some really strange stuff going on with that. There's this.
Are you saying that Trump de-ages?
No, I'm saying that there's multiple Trumps now because of time travel.
Right. So that's what I meant. So you're saying that like Trump from like what year are we in? 2023. So Trump from say 2027 is jumping back to 2022 and giving a speech. Is that what you're implying?
No, Trump from say, I don't know, 2030 or whatever has been in the audience behind President Trump in the audience.
Okay. So I misunderstood you. So you're saying that you will see multiple Trumps in one frame.
Yes.
Okay, I haven't seen that footage. I'd be interested in looking at that.
Yeah,
because
I'll find some of that and send it your way.
Yeah, I would like to, because my understanding is I'm having a really hard time believing that human time travel is possible. Of course, my theory just so everybody listening, I have concluded that time travel is legitimate. I see it more as like the ability to send information into the past, however far back they can go with computers, maybe into the 1800s, 1880s, 1890s, not really sure. But that's okay, good, fascinating, and I could go on and on about Looking Glass. I will quickly say, for those who didn't hear my presentation on this, that and I think Nephilim Hunter, you had kind of quickly went over it. It was one of those things, if you blink, you miss it. But like predictive programming, for example. I look at 9/11 now. This has baffled me that, going all the way back to at least 1975 or in the whereabouts 1972, right around the time the Twin Towers were built, they started with this predictive programming of 9/11. And sometimes the date would be a precise 9/11 2001. Now, you can predict a lot of things, like there's going to be a big tidal wave or a meteor, a comet, or something in some psyop that's going to happen in the next 30 years. But how precise they were on this, and my present thesis, the present conclusion is that 9/11 happened first, and then the predictive programming happens. And I kind of feel that way with President Trump too. The fact that I think 1985 is the earliest that I found that he started saying that he would, perhaps be president one day. And there's all those interviews with Oprah and others where they're all, asking him. I just find all that really fascinating. All right. If you guys have anything more to say on that, otherwise we're going to move on. You wanted to get into Q drops, and I wasn't quite sure. I think John Q, you threw in Crow 777 in there, and I was completely confused on that. So how does if I read that right?
Yeah, that kind of ties in a little bit with what we were talking about with movies and some various, one of the movies that's a very interesting movie is Moonfall. I don't know if you've seen Moonfall, but Moonfall.
Apparently I'm seeing all the wrong movies. No, I haven't seen that one.
So essentially, the plot of Moonfall is, the moon is some sort of craft. It's not, actually, it's obviously not a rock in space, but it does come from a heliocentric model, but it's not a rock. It's some sort of craft that houses this like AI in a demonic intelligence type of thing, and it starts to fall to Earth. It's kind of a red pill as far as gravity goes. It's hilarious when you watch the movie. And you're like, it'll just make you see the ridiculousness of gravity for one when you watch that movie. But there's been quite a few different people out in the Q community. One of them, his name is Wano Saban, who has come from the intelligence community, and he I don't take everything anyone says with as face value. I always take it with a grain of salt and try to get multiple sources to confirm things. But he has put out some interesting stuff about how the moon is actually some sort of craft that's housing some dangerous tech, and that would line up with Crow 777 and his he's filmed those those moon waves or whatever he calls them, right? I don't know if you've seen those, right? So what's going on with yeah, so what's going on with that? I don't know, but there's just another connection there with kind of movies. Now, I
didn't really look much into the moon waves, but I was just kind of thinking, I almost kind of maybe brushed it off at the time, thinking, oh, it's in the firmament, and that's we're actually seeing like tide or water up there, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. So could there be some sort of we really don't know what the moon is, right? Obviously we know the moon's not a rock orbiting around a globe Earth, but we don't really know what it is. So if you think of another reason I wanted to bring up movies was because if this kind of operation actually has been going on for a very, very long time, this war, it's been going on for decades. It's not just something that started recently, and there's been white hat, good people in trying to, infiltrating Hollywood. You could say infiltrating Hollywood, and you might get a writer in there, you might get somebody in there that is trying to put in some stuff. So both teams are using this kind of psychological warfare, trying to win this war of information that we're in. So you find a lot of clues in movies from both sides. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that.
All right, so Nephilim Hunter, just jump in if you have anything to say. But Q drop, the Q drop overall messages. How many Q drops would you say there are now?
There are 4,966 Q drops.
Okay, I would have overguessed. I would have said about 7,000, but okay. So 4,000 something. So what is the overall message when you're reading this? I mean, would you say, okay, I'll just throw this out there right now. With the Bolshevik Revolution, you know, one of the big criticisms you guys get is Operation Trust, right? That many people will say this is Operation Trust repeated. And that, for anyone who doesn't know, what they basically did was the Bolsheviks, when they wanted to take over Russia, they created a counter intel that was basically working for them. And the counter intel was a false kind of intel that was leading people astray to false pretenses to say, we are the rebellion. We are going to lead to destroy the Bolsheviks. And of course, they were working for them in the end. So when it comes to, I mean, the big thing is trust the plan. And that is, I'd say that's been one of my biggest reservations. Like, no, I don't want to trust your plan. So what are your guys' response on that?
Yeah. So the biggest difference between Operation Trust and the Q drops is that Q has a call to action. And it is one of the main themes of the Q drops is the call to action. I'll pull up here and I'll just go to the last like 20 or so drops. Here we go. Are you ready to take back control of this country? Q. Here's another one. Are you ready to finish what we started? This is not, Republican versus Democrat. This is about preserving our way of life. If America falls, the world falls. It's over and over. It's a call to action. It's a call to lawfully, take back control of our rights, of what we have been endowed with inalienable rights from the Father, right? And these rights have been taken from us. And so the overall message of Q is a call to action. It's a call to help spread, another famous Q line is save and spread. It's just save the information offline, and spread it, right? So it's another call to action. Operation Trust did not have a call to action. It was all about trust the military. Now there is a part of the Q message that is, saying trust the plan and military is the only way. Q says military is the only way, I think 2 or 3 times in the Q drops. And when it's saying trust the plan, it's talking about the military plan that's underway. It's saying trust us to do our part, but you've got to do your part too. And the plan is actually us, we the people. We are the plan. Like that's the message of the Q drop. And so trust that plan, do your part. That's the overall message.
Nephilim Hunter, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Q, just the whole thing is about exposure, and I do not believe for a second that the Q is provided and the aspects of how they are against child sex trafficking and bringing down the deep state. I do not believe that this is something nefarious. When I first started hearing about Q, I was like, what is this? But then when I put on this is a military operation, about exposing the deep state, bringing down those Luciferian secret societies that rule over the world, and expose and ending child sex trafficking. This goes on with these millions of kids that go missing every year. What that Q brings us is that, to me, is that down world, the aspect of Satan in this world being defeated, and then mentions That is the gist of it for me, is that giving the truth, exposing the evil, bringing it to light, exposing the darkness and bringing it to light, and opening everyone's eyes, forcing open the eyes of the people that do not see this.
Now, this is probably a great transition point to talk about the Great Awakening and how this plays out on a biblical timeline. And one, again, I don't really know where I have settled on QAnon, but there are a lot of commonalities, as I started out saying. Is I am and I don't think I expressed myself really good in the introduction, because I started out saying that if every several years a new class of people come in, and you kind of have to keep up with the research, and you see a lot of the people who've been in this a long time, and they're kind of like proud, and they're like, no, this is the right way to think. It's almost like the difference between baby boomers and Gen Xers with the millennials and whatever they're on, XYZ, whatever they're on now. And I say this because when I was in the truther world, when I woke up back in the day, probably right around the time you did, Nephilim Hunter, and within, it was 2015. That was the year. 2015 is when I woke up. And back then it was like, we're all going to the FEMA camps, and it's, we're getting ready for the Russian invasion, and it's, it's going to be like, what is it, that Patrick Swayze 80s movie? I can't think of it at the moment, where the Russians invaded. Oh, was it Red Dawn? And yeah, and so like it was not optimistic. It's like, everybody hold on to your butts. It's all about to go down. All we can do is try to warn people, right? And you had Jade Helm. I remember when that went down, and just a lot of stuff. And all of a sudden, within 2-3 years, all of a sudden this new class comes in. And they're just like, no, it's all going to be turned around. We're going to win. I'm like, what? No, we're not going to win. We're waiting for New Jerusalem to come down. We're waiting for, Yahuwah to intervene or whatever. And so it's like, this whole new, it's almost like the things we were talking about 7 to 10 years ago are like outdated now. And it's this whole new dialogue that's going on. And that's where I'm trying to swim through this and trying to understand it all. And so, again, this is so the Great Awakening is something that all three of us, I think, agree on. And I think there really is something about the year 2012, December 21st, particularly into the Mayan calendar. Some people will say that's inaccurate, whatever, it was 2009, doesn't really matter. We are clearly in a great awakening right now with the flat earth, with the Torah, with all these revelations coming about, and QAnon is a huge part of that. I have to really step back and reevaluate some of my earlier conclusions by saying I am seeing so many people that are coming to the truth because of QAnon. And so I got to respect that. So what are your guys' thoughts on this in terms of where we find ourselves in the biblical timeline today? I mean, you guys all know where I stand, but this is a good part to start talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and I think, well, both Neff and I are on the same page with you, Noel, in that, we both agree that we are in Satan's short season now, following the 1,000-year millennial reign. So what does the end of Satan's short season look like, right? So what it's going to look like is, the scriptures say that, sit at my right hand until, I make all of your enemies a footstool for your feet. He must reign until all of his enemies are made a footstool, the last enemy being death, right? So really, for me, what it comes down to is Matthew 13, verses 37 to 43. And it says, he answered, and this is Yahusha explaining the parable of the good seed and the wheat and the tares to the disciples. He said, the one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man, the field is the world, and the good seeds is the sons of the kingdom. The weeds are the sons of the evil one. So here you've got the wheat, good seed, the sons of the kingdom. You've got the tares, the weeds, the sons of the evil one. So that kind of, you can look at that and you can really see serpent seed there, right? The enemy who sowed the bad seed is the devil. And it says the harvest is at the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels or messengers. And it says, just as the weeds are gathered and burned with fire, so will it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom. So his kingdom is already here. This is not pre-kingdom. This is kingdom already here. He will gather out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all lawbreakers. So this we can't say this is millennial kingdom, because during the millennial kingdom there was still sin, there was still lawbreakers, there was still causes of sin. But this is saying it's going to gather out of his kingdom is already existing, all causes of sin and all lawbreakers, and throw them into the fiery furnace. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. So what would it look like for all the evil in the world, and not only just evil people, but institutions, stumbling blocks, all the stumbling blocks too? Like, what would that look like for all of that to be removed? And so how do you weed out all the weeds in the world, in the harvest field, without damaging and pulling up the wheat? Right? Like, the rapture crowd has it all wrong. It's not the sons of the kingdom that are taken up. It's, if anything, it's the evil ones are removed, right? It says so
Right.
that the righteous will shine forth. So so what I think we're seeing in this kind of Q operation and Great Awakening, and that Great Awakening I think ties in with Revelation 20, where it talks about fire coming down from Yah and from heaven and consuming them. I think is talking about, I think that is referencing a Great Awakening and how the all-consuming fire of the Ruach HaKodesh awakening people out of their slumber, and then they were able to resist and
now,
wake up to what's going on.
To that point, you're okay. So I had just said, perfect timing, that these different generations of truthers come in, and it's very much like a Gen X versus millennials. I'm the last year of Gen X. We're pretty. Nephilim Hunter, you're a Gen X too. John Q, I think you're either a millennial or Gen X, but my wife is like the first year of the millennials. I'm like the last of the Gen X, and it's perfect because I embody so many Gen X ideas and I identify with Gen X, whereas my wife is very much a millennial in a lot of the way she thinks and does things. So we are separated by a generation, and it's almost like John Q, like yours and my ideas on how this is all going to go down it's almost like a generation removed in a way, because like I just said, how I have a very glass half empty. That's a terrible way, because I think positively in the fact that Yah wins. But like my idea is that teaming up with Zionism, all the true Zionist invasion is going to be all the nations, the kings of the earth surrounding New Jerusalem, what I call the hidden wilderness, now to invade it. Now, if I understand you correctly, and I want to compliment your view because it's spot on with some things that the Torah community talks about, is that the idea of the fire coming down, that this is like this is the Ruach HaKodesh, this is it's almost truth itself that's a refining fire, if I understand you correctly. I think your view is that the surrounding of the camp of Yah is actually like that we are each the camp of Yah. Did I hear you right in the past? I know you didn't say that tonight, but yeah.
No,
so
I would say, we as believers are, the saints who are surrounded. Yeah.
So the reason I say this is that you had mentioned earlier Left Behind, and I was never into that series. My mom loved it, and I remember people like they would walk into church, they had their Bible, and then the latest Left Behind, like they bring it in like it's the Bible, right? And it was really big back then. And I seem to recall that Tim LaHaye and Jerry B. Jenkins, they portrayed the two prophets as two actual dudes who would like breathe fire out of their mouth, which is kind of like almost like a shallow interpretation of scripture, that when you understand that Yasharel and Yehuda are most likely the two witnesses, and that the fire that's coming out of their mouth is the word of Elohim, that we are, giving this deeper, like the evangelical church has the tip of the iceberg, but we've got the Torah, the Tanakh. We understand how all these pieces connect, and we are like, nobody can withstand, the Bible. If they're just going off of First Corinthians and that's all they got, Paul's letters or whatever.
Right. The two witnesses needed to put per the Torah. You needed two witnesses to put to issue the death penalty, and the death penalty is going to be issued against Jerusalem. Who are the two witnesses? The law and the prophets. Right.
Now, that's one. It could be the law of prophets. A lot of people think it's Yehuda and Yasharel coming together, what Rob Skiba would call the Ephraim awakening. And just to your point there, I think that's really
multiple meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, as you guys know, I do believe that there were two physical prophets in the 70 AD. I think Yaakov, Yahusha's brother, was probably one of them, but I can't prove that, but that's my theory. So anyways, that's all. Yeah, great stuff. Nephilim Hunter, do you have anything to throw in here?
Just to kind of, add a little bit to what John Q was mentioning. I think that when he is talking about the wheat and the tare, separating them and then casting the wheat in, I think it's key where it mentions then. It doesn't say like there's a specific time period. When this is all said and done, I think that maybe Yahuwah is going to say, okay, I'm going to guys see what it would have been like on earth the way I wanted it to be, or sin possibly. It's all guesswork, but I think the key word for me is when it's there's a pause. It's like a then. Hairs are cast into the furnace. It's the wheat will be gathered. So could there be, a period of so many years that we are experiencing that, the way the earth that, you meant it to be? I just, what you is his love, mercy. Yes, he's the lion. He also is love. And the greatest commandment that he gave us was to love one another. I think that he have that hope that he is love. So when I think about that aspect of it, I have a hope and a trust and a belief that better day coming, that he was going to let his believers and followers experience. And I think that's what all goes hand in hand with all of this, is that just like it says in Matthew 17:20, for truly, if you have faith, this mountain move from here to there, and it will move. I think that's what he wants us to not only believe in him, but have faith and belief that Yahuwah is going to come through for us, that we're about to experience some things that are going to really, it's not going to be hard. Whether it's the exposure of Hollywood and adrenochrome, whether it's, bombs and missiles flying towards us, or some kind of or event that's going to be coming about, I think he is go up and show out, and I think it's going to be a kind of a last minute thing, and he wants us to believe in him and trust in him no matter what, and to hold our faith, hold the line and hold our faith in him that he's going to come through. He desires us to have that faith and trust in him. That's what I'm going to be doing. I have 100% belief that this is going to be favorable and hope and joy when this all comes about, whether it's, like I said, tomorrow or at the end of the year, whenever this is out. I think that's what the whole message is, that he literally is just that he wants us to believe in him, trust in him 100%. He's got this. Yusha's already won, right? Yusha's already won this entire battle. And I think that believe in him through this trial and mess that's going on right now, to just lay it out there and just like, all right, give it all to him and believe in hope. The doubt and say and all that stuff, cast that away and just 100% belief and trust in Yahuwah that he's got this, because you already won.
Yeah, I fully agree. Absolutely. Something I did want to add about the Great Awakening. And John Q, you had said something a couple months back that really stuck with me. I thought it was really fascinating. That I think you said that this truth coming out was actually, I think you referred to as transmissions from Zion, which I found completely fascinating. And of course, a lot of people, when they think of Zion, they think of the Matrix films, which probably is not too, it's like hidden in the earth. It's probably not too far off from the truth, because I do think Zion is a physical location in the hidden wilderness, that it's somewhere that it's on this earth, but we don't know where it is. And so I love this idea that they are sending out these transmissions, and that this is causing this great awakening, and people are waking up everywhere. Now, the fact of the matter is that Yahuwah set apart ways, his instructions in righteous living is something that everybody has to choose for themselves. A lot of people, just because they're waking up to these truths, many people are still rejecting a deeper obedience to the Father. But the fact is that we are seeing people all over the world waking up to that, and that's really exciting. Now, in terms of this Great Awakening, I like the wheat and tare example, because, like I said, I am just shocked and awed at all the people everywhere waking up every day. More people are coming to me. They tell me, "No, I just heard about the flat Earth last week," or these kind of things, and they're all excited. I just heard about the Torah, but then you're seeing the opposite side, like in terms of the tares, they're doubling down. And I've been talking about this a lot over the last several weeks, but as of an hour ago, it seemed like everybody knew what a man or a woman was, that a man was an XY chromosome, and a woman was an XX chromosome with a uterus and able to deliver babies. And now you're seeing that all these people are going further, like, while all these people on one way are waking up, the other side, they're going into this abyss. They're just like, there's a separation happening. Yep. And they're going into this abyss, and they can't even tell you what a woman is anymore, right? They're like, some women have penises, and and some men have vaginas or whatever. Some men can be mommies, and it's just like, it's like, what in the world is happening today? It's unbelievable how people are losing their minds. So I can't help but expect that we're going to see more and more of this, and this is why I think that if there were like a tribunal or that kind of thing in the near future, I don't think most people would accept it. I think people would riot. I think it would have, like, of course, I'm not the one looking into this mirror and looking glass, right? I'm not the one that sees the singularity event or what the outcome is. And obviously, I do believe that there are people looking into that. So I wanted to bring on Rebecca, if you wanted to come up here, if you're still with us. And she took down a few questions. I was wondering if she could read them off for you guys. Yeah, good night to everyone who's going night, going to get their beauty rest. I understand it's getting late. Rebecca, what are some of the questions?
Well, we had a lot of questions. We answered some of them during the conversation, but Patrick had quite a few. And one of them, let's just take a couple here. One of them, he wanted to know if you guys could explain your thoughts on JFK Jr. being involved in the Q plan, and in parentheses, he put still alive.
I had the same question.
Yeah, I absolutely lean very hard by this point, I would actually be surprised to eventually find out that he's not alive. That would surprise me. I think that his death was fake. There's actually a John. I don't know if you know about John Teeter. I think you might have touched on that, Noel, in your time travel thing. But there's a link with John Teeter and JFK Jr. where he actually warned JFK Jr. about the impending assassination attempt, and so they swapped out the plane. It was a different plane than his beloved Cessna, which is still being flown today, by the way, and putting out all kinds of interesting comms, including like flying in a Q pattern and stuff like that. By the I think it's the Navy that owns that plane now. So yeah, it wasn't his plane. He had an accident, right, where like a skiing accident or something. So he was in a cast or a sling or something for a while, so he couldn't fly. And well, of course, at that point they were swapping out the plane. The plane got and then they were figuring out what the bomb was, how it was working, and then okay, he announces his next trip. They let them plant the bomb. It's actually a Navy SEAL that flies that plane and parachutes out, lets it explode. And then there's a whole bunch of evidence around that. One of the most compelling things is the actual person from the United States Navy who was calling into a local, or not sure it was local or national, but it was a news station, news organization giving updates. You go back and you listen to the voice. You Google that or DuckDuckGo, Brave browser, whatever you use. Find the Navy reports on JFK Jr. His plane crash. Listen to that voice, and then find with one of the Anons, myself or Neph or Cyber or Patrick. I'm sure they can point you to this. It's an Anon whose name is Joe M, and he's put out a whole bunch of stuff, and it's that Navy person who was calling in about giving updates on JFK Jr.'s plane and Joe M's voice are identical. And then this is where I wanted to kind of go back to our movies, right? If you watch the Atlas Shrugged, they're all great, but watch the first one. I think at 1 minute and 7 seconds into it, 17, the voice of the narrator for a little bit is Joe M. Like there's just, I have no doubt. I don't, that JFK Jr. is alive. And in fact, one of my friends compared JFK Jr. to the current Joe Biden. Face structures, ears, they match. I think JFK Jr. is one of the actors playing Joe Biden.
I could see it like the ending to the first Iron Man. Remember where Robert Downey Jr. stands up there and he's like, "I'm Iron Man." Like just the day he rips off the mask. He goes, "I'm JFK Jr."
Yeah.
Rebecca, you got another question? Unless the Nephilim Hunter, you wanted to say something.
No, I agree totally with John Q on that. I would be honestly surprised if didn't have something to do with this, wasn't involved, and wasn't alive. I'd be shocked.
This is the first time I've ever heard about the bomb in the plane. That's news to me. I mean, because I would just say that like the classic death by plane crash is it's just a great way for intel to remove somebody from the scene. I mean, it's like Kobe Bryant when they kickstarted the whole COVID psychodrama. Remember there was that fake helicopter crash.
Yeah, absolutely. The Q drops talk a lot about about how many people are the plane crashes and what's going on really behind that. Do planes really just fall out of the sky for no reason? And then that's the other thing about the Atlas Shrugged movies is one of the themes of that movie is high profile people in society being removed in a protective to protect them, basically, right? And I think we're probably seeing some of that. Did Kobe Bryant, was he really killed in a helicopter crash? Was Paul, the Fast and the Furious guy, Paul Walker, was he really killed in a car crash? I don't know.
All right, Rebecca, what's your next question?
Also from Patrick, he'd like you to discuss how Bitcoin fits into the plan.
So I am not very well versed or researched into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. That's not really, I don't know a whole lot about it. I know just a little tiny bit. I own probably like, I don't know, maybe $100 worth of crypto, some Doji tokens or whatever they're called, and a couple of things. So I'm probably not the right person to answer. I don't know, Neff, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm against crypto. I'm just 100% silver and gold. I think that's the way everything's going to go. I think that our U.S. economy is going to completely bottom out and crash. It's going bye-bye, and I suggest not to everyone, or anyone, but I'm going silver and gold, and I think that's crypto, no way.
I'm going oil. I'm going to buy a big oil field, and that's the direction I'm going. All right,
Toilet
Rebecca.
paper. That's the other thing. Toilet paper. That's a good one.
Well, Josh Lambert would like to stir the pot. So he had an interesting question. In pursuance of obedience to Torah observance, or as pursuance of obedience to Torah observance becomes reality, how can one attest, air quotes, goodness to an entity that doesn't acknowledge the law, his set apart name, or any number of other staples of righteousness?
Yeah, great question. So I would say that everyone is in various stages of being drawn to the Father. Everyone has a different walk. They all get there in different speeds and different ways. Those that Yah has chosen to, has adopted as sons and daughters, he's chosen before the foundations of the earth to bring them to himself. That they are his sheep, and he will not lose a single one of them. I didn't even, it was 2 years ago. I never heard of the name, the sacred name Ruach HaKodesh. I had never heard that. I had heard Yahuwah or Yahweh and Yeshua, but I'd never even heard of, I'd never heard the name Ruach HaKodesh. I would say that give grace to and recognize that everyone is on different paths of their journey, and also there are people that Yah will use that are not his believers, but he will use them anyway, and they don't really have anything to say about it. And Pharaoh is one of those. King Cyrus in the Old Testament, Isaiah 45, which is, you can draw a lot of connections, a lot of parallels between Cyrus and Trump. Isaiah 45, Trump is for president. There's a bunch of other things. So, whether or not Trump is a believer, I believe he is now, but I think he's a fairly young believer. Yeah, that would be my take there.
I think my take has changed a little bit on QAnon, and of course, I don't believe that QAnon is, from what I've seen, I have not been impressed. All right, I don't mean to say that cocky or whatever, but I think that I had some sort of like false, presumptions when I started looking into QAnon, because I would see a lot. I think how do you explain this? So everybody, we come to this life, and we're I believe we're given everything we need to fulfill our purpose in this life. The problem is that most people misinterpret that. Most people misinterpret the things they're given, the clues along the way, the information. And so I see a lot of the Anons who are, Sunday school Jesus, eating bacon, American flag. I see pictures of like Trump with like Jesus next to him, this kind of stuff. And for me, that's a big turnoff. I think that's a turnoff for a lot of us. And, that in itself is not what I perceive to be reality. A lot of other people within the QAnon movement perceive that to be a reality. But that doesn't mean that Q is not actually intel coming from, right? Like that doesn't disprove the idea that there might be these white hats that are really going up against the cabal, right? And maybe they're really convicted of the Bible, and they're just not at the place we're at. At least that's where I'm at now. Nephilim Hunter, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I less of the world or states, whatever way you want to look at it. Who actually even believes in Yusha, right? The population as a whole. If Q would be beneficial in now the actual like law and that aspect, I think that I think first needs to wake people up that they have a savior in Yusha, and then the other things will fall into place. Even looking at my own walk, I didn't know we should be still keeping Torah until about 4 or 5 years ago. I had no idea.
Yeah,
If someone would go ahead.
Oh, so yeah, and I was going to say that was one of the motivating factors behind writing my article series is to, and there is to try to help draw the Q and the Anon crowd into a recognition of the law is abiding, it is eternal, and I've noticed on True Social, especially on True Social. So True Social, I'm on there a lot, and fabulous, fantastic, amazing conversations going on in True Social around how the law of Yahweh is our instructions in righteousness. It's eternal. It abides, and just having so much great dialogue on True Social. And so yeah, like that was one of the driving factors for me behind writing my article series was to show the connection between Q and the Millennial Kingdom, and then also kind of bring that into the law.
Yeah. Now, and before we go to the next question, I just want to add to this that when a lot of us, when we come over to the Torah, we become very zealous about it. And the zealousness is good, and we want to, especially if it's guarding commands, we want to guard the commands. But we almost get into this salvation debate. And for a guy like me who's grown up in the church, and it's been a slow progression of understanding the Bible and coming to the decisions that I've come to, I look back at myself when I was, 25, when I was 15, when I was, given the age, and I can see that Yah was in my life, and he was kind of pushing me further, and he was teaching me, and there were setbacks because of my sin and other things like that. But I don't believe that that I wasn't on the salvation path. I think that finally the day came when I was presented with this greater truth, and it was dropped in my lap, and I had the decision to say, either I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do this. And I decided to follow the path and be more obedient. I don't know what would have happened if I, decided not to. But I again, it's just to be fair with the QAnon drops that, it's almost like we expect it to be like, just all truth in there, have everything put together, and that's just not the way it works. And everyone is on a journey. And so I am at least grateful that here I am sitting with John Q, who has come to Torah because of him discovering Q and then starting to dig into that, and he finally came here. And so there are pathways that are connected to this intel operation that are bringing people here. All right, Rebecca, what do you have for the next question?
Lisa has a great question. She wants to know whether you think there's a possibility that Q is AI, and that's how he gets his info.
I think Q is the guy from Star Trek: The Next Generation.
I think it's possible that there is some AI behind Q. Q themselves, says that that they're a group of 10, 3 are non-military. I do think that behind the Q, whoever is support, like there's someone, there's obviously support, and stuff behind what we just see in the Q drops and reading the Q drops. And there are different authors in the Q drops. You can kind of see that there's different styles and things. But I don't know that the AI or whoever or whatever it is behind that is actually writing those drops. I do think it's humans that are writing the drops. But I actually lean more towards potentially that the Q team and the military intelligence people behind this operation are working with some of the resurrected saints who were here during the millennial reign. I think that wherever they are now, I would expect that during Satan's short season, they would be running some sort of counterinsurgency special operations into our realm, where we are. That they would be, doing inserts and exfils from wherever their base of operations is. I think that explains a lot of things that I've learned about, like on and I forget the guy's name. He was one of the earlier flat earthers who has put out tons of information on various things, whether it be various craft. We know if the demons, if they have Nephilim, if they have craft and things, well, it would make sense that the angels and the saints would have craft.
Can I just jump in here real quick? And I have learned something in my time on YouTube and putting out videos, is that I can never assume that everyone knows what I'm talking about. And one of the reasons I have to, in my presentations, I have to be so repetitive to you guys is because the moment I drop the ball on one little point here or there, and it's like, well, if you saw episode 77 and episode 143 and episode podcast 22, you would know what I'm talking about, right? And then somebody comes on with some rude comment and they think I don't know what I'm talking about. So what John Q is talking about here, all right, which is my position, and this is where John Q came into the unexpected cosmology, is that I advocate, I think all three of us do, Nephilim Hunter as well, we advocate that the millennial kingdom of Yahushua HaMashiach, of Jesus Christ, of Messiah, was spiritual, but it was also physical, that it physically happened on this earth, happened over a 1,000-year period, and what we call probably the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, and that now we are in Satan's short season, and that we are being lied to about this huge act, and that the evidence of the millennial kingdom is everywhere on this earth. We call it Tartaria, there's the mud flood, that kind of stuff. So John Q, your position on the millennial kingdom saints, that's what I wanted, because a lot of people that just go right past them, like, what are you talking about? The idea is that these millennial kingdom saints are on the earth doing missions, intel missions, and you're attaching them to Q, and I find that really fascinating. A number of reasons. One is that I've already done my own research through a bunch of ancient books and found that my conclusions was that many of the angels in the Bible that would show up were actually, they were from the order of Melchizedek, but they were actually former people on the earth who were coming back to fulfill missions. Two of those potentially were the angels that went to Sodom and Gomorrah. I am not 100% convinced, but I lean in the direction that these two angels actually were former people who were in the Melchizedek priesthood that were doing these missions on earth. And it's interesting to see what they do. They go into Sodom, they grab Lot. Now, of course, if Lot had not been doing his part of fulfilling Torah and actually going up, excuse me, and being nice to them, imagine if he had never gone up and did what he did, he would have been killed too. It was only because he came in and interfered. But they weren't like feeding him like, all the instructions in righteous living and all that. They were just like, they were there to fulfill a mission. And then boom, the city went up. And I often wonder about that. I wonder like how many times when these things happen all across this motionless plane in this realm of ours, that go in the news, and how some of them are hoaxes and psyops and all these different things, but they're here working on this earth. And I don't know, that I find that really exciting. So when you compare that with the fact that there's these transmissions coming from Zion that are waking people up, that you actually have these active agents on this earth going around and doing whatever they're doing, their missions, I don't really know. So I think that's kind of what I just wanted to kind of give a picture on what you were talking about.
Yeah, that's absolutely what I'm talking about. And I think that these saints are they're working with the Q team behind the scenes. Like it says that, Matthew 13, 37 to 43, it says, and by the way, here's some interesting numbers around Matthew 13, 37 to 43. You have 13. Well, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with the 13 bloodline families, right? Those are the sons of the evil one. And then you've got 37 through 43. What's 3 and 7 is 10. 4 and 3 is 7. 10 and 7 is 17. We're talking about Q, the 17th letter of the alphabet. So Matthew 13, 37 through 43 is talking about a war between the 13 bloodlines and the Q operation. And he's sending his angels. It says he'll send his angels into the world to remove the 13 bloodline families, right? The sons of the evil one. So yeah, I absolutely think that's what we're seeing happening, and I think we're seeing that play out right in front of us today.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and bring this up then. A question I have, Rebecca, maybe you have more questions, but I want to jump in and ask this. Both of you, if you guys cannot answer this is okay, because people ask me questions all the time, and I can't answer them. It doesn't, this isn't like a debate or, you're right and I'm right and you're wrong, whatever. But back with the election, particularly when Trump went up against Biden, the stolen election one, I was really into digging into genealogies back then. And I dug into Hillary Clinton's genealogy, and of course Bill Clinton's, and I quickly learned that their so-called meeting in the school library, what was it? Was it, I can't remember now, was it Harvard? I can't remember where it was, Yale. That could not have been a coincidence, that it was a total setup. Bill Clinton, of course, was more royal than Hillary Clinton, but according to the research I was able to pull together, and of course I didn't have all the charts in front of me, but it seemed as though Trump was more royal than Hillary Clinton. This would, of course, be the 2016 elections. David Icke, I know a lot of people have different views on him, but he's really big into the blue bloods, the 13 families, and his view is that the most royal always wins. I bring that up. I don't necessarily know if I agree with that, but nevertheless, it's something to throw out there. Now, I found that Trump was related to King Edward III, Richard III. I think Hillary was related to Richard III as well. They're all related to Charlemagne, going all the way back to the same bloodline. And I'm just wondering, like, in this sense, and I have different views on the blue bloods now, especially from a Millennial Kingdom standpoint. So I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts are on that. That Trump is just as much of a blue blood as reportedly as the bad guys.
Yeah. You kind of I think probably one of your, hesitancies are like, well, how can we know, right? If post mud flood, how do we know that these people really do hail back to whatever we're told or whatever? But regardless, we are told that if what you found, we are told that Trump was more royal than Hillary. Well, yeah, okay. What I would say though is Hillary was a very high-ranking witch, very high-ranking. Like she was into, wearing children's faces on her face, all kinds of really bad stuff. I think I would think that would probably trump, no pun intended, Trump's royalty when it comes to this satanic cabal that we're talking about here. The Q drops do indicate that they never thought she would lose. They never thought Hillary would lose, and that's why you see them how careless they were, because they thought they were covered. They didn't think they would ever be exposed. So, yeah, I don't have a better answer than that.
Just so you know, I don't either. I mean, my looking at us in a post-millennial kingdom realm has altered a lot of ideas. I speculate that the serpent seed that I talk about a lot, that they were already wiped out. Like the serpent seed doesn't exist anymore. I mean, that's just a possibility I'm looking at. And then I would ask the question, well, who are the blue bloods? So, are they actually a certain type of descendancy from Israel? And I will remind everyone that, for example, that they're saying we have a right to rule. I will remind everyone that there were very few righteous kings in Judah or Israel. I mean, you look at Jezebel, right? Ahab and Jezebel, and it's said that she ruled her kingdom by way of magic. And I think that was probably like psychodramatic stuff like we see today. So a lot of wicked people. So it doesn't mean that everyone from this bloodline necessarily would be evil as well. I just want to kind of throw that out there. Rebecca, did you have any other questions for them? She might be.
Sorry.
Oh, there's.
I hit a wrong button. Yeah.
I was imagining you like running across the room to try to get back to the computer.
No, that was last time. Patrick again would like to know if you could explain the difference between red pills, black pills, and white pills.
So yeah, red pill is like the red pill in the Matrix, right? You take that and take the red pill, and I will, you'll see what's really going on. A black pill is not a blue pill. A blue pill is you stay in the Matrix and you're content. A black pill is like after you've taken the red pill. Now the black pill will fill you full of despair. That's kind of what the black pill will do. Like, basically,
I agree with that.
Yah is not going to win this, right? Like, it's the evil one is way too powerful. There's, we should expect things to get worse and worse and worse. That's the black pill. And then the white pill, I haven't actually heard that.
There's also, don't forget the purple pills. Purple pillars, those are the people that have a steady diet of both red and blue pills.
Yes.
They have a lot of cognitive dissonance. They understand some truth, but they're still really hung up on the lies. I have not heard the white one either, but the black pills, I've seen a lot of them. Particularly from my generation. I talk about I guess there's a lot of them in QAnon, but I was talking about how, I came from this kind of truther school that, we're all doomed and we're going to be going off to the FEMA camps. And it was like a lot of black pills going around.
So Patrick answered it about white pills. He says white pills are happiness and love everywhere. So maybe that's kind of like hopium, right? Overdose of hopium would be a white pill.
I still don't get it. Like, I know that there are people out there that are all puppies and bunny rabbits all the time, but okay. Anyways, I need an example of a white pillar to understand who they are. I don't get it. Oh, and then Sean said there's the Anheuser-Busch pill. Let's not let's not take that one. That's not happening.
Oh, Crazy Chicken Boy would like to know about the Marina Abramovich connection. How she states that Trump being president is the best thing that could happen, and how she said that a couple times.
Yeah, I don't believe her. I mean,
just disinfo or something.
Yeah, I don't think she would really want Trump as president.
Well, go ahead and finish. I'll give my thought on it.
Yeah, I mean, what is Trump? Let's look at some of the fruit of President Trump and how that goes totally against what Maria Abramovich. Trump has has waged a war on child sex trafficking, human trafficking, the likes of which no other president, who they all should have, never did. Trump has nominated the Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe v. Wade, which, hey, that the abortion was their sacrament, right? That was their sacrament. Like, it's not something they're just going to give up, right? It's those. I don't buy that. The overturning of Roe v. Wade was just part of the enemy's plans. I don't think that at all. He's he didn't get us into any wars, so the military-industrial complex. Yeah, they there was a lot of military spending under President Trump to build up our military and our reserves, but we weren't going to war. So like I don't think any of them wanted us to stop going to war. Some of the other fruits, well, not only just Supreme Court justices, but the justices he's nominated and put in place at all the federal levels when he was a president. And then, just kind of awakening people up. Like, he's done a lot of stuff that's kind of waking people up to what's going on around, on this earth. Heck, the stolen election was a huge red pill that woke me up. So yeah, I don't, when Maria Abramovich said that, I just don't believe her.
Now, and that's fair. You don't believe her. Now, my understanding of her quote, where the spirit cooker went up on stage and said that in an interview, she was not in favor of Trump, and she was actually appalled by Trump. But she was told by the occult that he was selected as a person that was taking the baseball bat to the wasp nest. It was all a part of the transition from the dark to the light. And I've used this analogy a lot of us have, is the idea of the Wizard of Oz, right? There's Dorothy. She teams up with the Witch of the South. We never get a reason why she should, but she's like, okay, I'll go kill this other witch like you want. And she goes and kills the Wicked Witch of the West. Not everyone thought she was wicked, but she was given the title wicked. I would agree she is wicked, but at the end of the day, they're both witches, right? And so the idea is that it has been long discussed by the occult, Masonic societies, Illuminati, different underground societies, that there would be, they've been warning us for over 100 years that there would be a transition, right? That there would be within dualism, and you could even say within the esoteric reality behind androgyny, and how they're going to, there's just a swap. It's this pendulum swing that goes back and forth between dark and light. And they were bringing Trump out she said, to create a great awakening of consciousness, to cause people to react. And so that's something obviously they do a lot with psychodrama and other things, is they get emotion out of you. They get you to act a certain way. That's my understanding of why she said what she said. That she was acknowledging that there was a huge paradigm shift and that Trump was a part of it. So just take it for what it is, I guess. Yeah. I did like wait, I need to find here. Oh, Patrick gave an example. I asked for an example of a white pillar, and he said Elvis is alive and a pastor. That's a white pill. All right, so I guess that's a positive thought that he's still alive. So
Michael would like to know your thoughts on Trump's Space Force.
Yeah, I think Space Force is really mainly dedicated to cyber space, not necessarily, heliocentric model outer space. There's President Trump has dropped a lot of little hints about space and moon landing and that kind of stuff. They're more than subtle. If you go back and watch, and I forget this was it was I think it was it John? No, not John Glenn, but one of the other astronauts and Trump. There's a press conference announcing something to do with
Buzz Aldrin.
Yeah, it was Buzz Aldrin. Thank you. And Trump was like, hey, we haven't been back to space in like whatever it was, 25 years, if you can believe that, and there's some other like hints, some things he was saying, and Buzz Aldrin is just like if you know about flat Earth, like you can see these obvious like nods, and Buzz is like, you see watch his facial expressions. It's hilarious. He's like, what are you doing, kind of thing. So yeah, I think that Space Force, what they're really doing is cyberspace, not outer space. Obviously, there is no outer space.
Yeah, I think what the Space Force, well, of course, you're saying it's cyberspace, but essentially they're just taking over what the Air Force was already doing in some areas, but that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
Talk with the internet as we currently.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nephilim. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. No, there's just a lot of chatter about the internet as we currently have it up and going is going to go down and be replaced by a new system that was possibly co-developing it or military wise, but that's what a lot of the chatter that I hear is that the Space Force is working hand in hand and behind the scenes working on the new blockchain and new internet, and that's gonna will be more secure and things nature against hacking, and will probably play hand in hand when the new elections are installed with with ID and things of that nature, just to keep things more secure. I don't know if what of that would be is true, but that's what a lot of the things that I hear is what Space Force is involved with. Yeah.
Quick note on Buzz Aldrin. Everyone talks about the fake moon landing. They seem to forget that Buzz Aldrin, whenever they need to set up a fake place, they seem to send Buzz Aldrin. They send him to the South Pole, and we know the South Pole doesn't exist. But it's also not talked about that Buzz Aldrin, I think it was actually in a yellow submarine. He went to the Titanic. So, and if you guys know my thoughts that the Titanic does not exist, that there's nothing that sunk, there's nothing at the bottom of the ocean. But James Cameron and Buzz Aldrin were two of the very few people who apparently went down there and saw it. Do you have any more questions, Rebecca?
Yes, Not Psychic would like to know, is the alliance with the alien nations real?
I don't I looked at all that stuff. I personally don't buy any of it. And it's I don't see it in the Q drops either.
The closest thing that would go hand in hand with any kind of alien, quote unquote, would be just from outside the ice wall, and it wouldn't be aliens as in what the mainstream present us with as far as extraterrestrials, as far as space, because we all know that's fake. So are there other ice wall, or I don't know. That's one thing. Noel, can I hit on one thing that you brought up about the Firmament proving as like a wake up pill? Is that I think with a Q drop 2450 Brave New World, right? And hand in hand with this that broke last year in June, where Putin was actually ripping up the Antarctica Treaty. Is there truth in that? Is it going to happen? I don't know, but I think that that was one thing I was actually going to talk about or bring up at least tonight. I 100% agree with you, is that if and when that stupid Antarctica treaty is ripped up, dissolved, and we go and just see for ourselves, okay, here's where the firmament meets the ice wall, not you and I, but just people in general, and just go and explore and see that will be major wake up call to people. Like, look, this is it. Here's the truth. It's in your face. It's tangible. It's physical. So you can't dispute it. And so I think it's going to be, and it may even play a part as far as the ice wall, as far as, who knows, maybe there's like, it's going to open or something, and you will like, hey, here's your new land or something. I don't know. It's just, it's like a cool line of thought to kind of, entertain for a few minutes, just to think about that, what that would entail, and how the moon map would come into play with that, with the extra lands, new lands, quote unquote, and into the Q drop of Brave New World. Does that have something to do with it? I don't know, but it's really cool that if, that news would even break, where, last June with Putin saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing if that happens. So maybe we'll finally get something from that.
Yeah, there was a time not so long ago where I said that would never happen. It would be impossible. But I have seen, the thing is with truthers is we start learning all these facts, these truths about a realm that everyone else believes are lies. And we want this vindication. Like, oh, they'll see that I was right. But I always try to tell people, like you can't think that way. You can't live your life by, you're in this just to prove them wrong and that how you're right. But the thing is that I have seen the script flip recently, where like you see the mainstream media. Well, I guess Tucker Carlson, but we don't know if he's a robot or not.
2.0.
Yeah, Tucker Carlson 2.0, that all the things he's talking about, and I'm just shocked at what he's saying. I can't believe it. I never thought I would hear that on cable television, the mainstream media. And so I'm like, yeah, I could see it. I could see something where they would just come out and be like, yep, there's a firmament. And that would be incredible if that were, I'm sure. And again, I want vindication, right? And all the, we can all think about all the people that have, whatever, say we're all crazy, whatever, for believing what the Bible says. But I know that they would never give us credit. They'd be like, they would all of a sudden believe it, but they would pretend like, like they never heard about it before then. That's always how it works.
Yeah.
Q does say, to wake up.
Go ahead.
To wake up. It's more than, it's not like a vindication for me personally. It's more of just like, you guys to wake up. Come on, here's the truth. And just real fast, the rocket that Elon sent up a couple weeks ago, you see the top of it is stuck in the gel or whatever, that's the layer of ether or whatever before it hits the firmament, that gel stuff up there. You can see the nose of the rocket get stuck in it and it starts spinning. There's no way that would have happened if that wasn't there. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know if you guys have seen clips of that. It's fascinating. I watched it live and I was like, oh my gosh, they're really just putting it in our face. Point.
That was a couple weeks ago too. I have not seen it. I've been, I guess, out of touch with all that stuff. I mean, I remember years ago when they showed the footage of those people, and I think it was in Nevada. They shot the rocket up, and it went dink, and they kind of just sat there. So,
yep.
Yeah, I would be interested to see it.
Yeah, I mean, the Q drops. Another thing we didn't touch on earlier about the Q drops is truth. Like, Q is talking about how the truth will shock the world. He talks about how, like, he asks the question, like, how do you show the public the truth, right? Like, and he's talked about how most most things, if they were revealed too suddenly, would put people in the hospital, that kind of stuff. Like, so that's, I think we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing the truth being revealed, and one of the things that it's obviously a big contention thing among the truther community. Is flat Earth. There's a lot of truthers who are absolutely totally against flat Earth. They think it's all just a psyop, but I guess they've never actually used some modern day optics and just checked it out for themselves. But regardless, one of the things that in the Q community you get a battle over between the flat earthers and the ballers, I'll call them, is the Q reference. The only Q reference to flat Earth is Q is responding to an Anon who there's like a Q&A session, I think, or it might have just been but the Anon says, just to shut the flat earthers up, Q, is the Earth flat? And Q responds and says no. So, of course, Globers said, see, Q says the Earth isn't flat. And, Globers in the Q community, you kind of try to use that as proof. But they're not thinking logically, which is what Q has taught us to do, is to think logically. And what is the premise of the question? The question is not the Anon in that, when he's asking that question, the Anon is not actually wanting the truth or even asking for the truth. He says, just to shut the flat earthers up, is the Earth flat? So the premise is, just to shut the flat earthers up, I'm not looking for the truth. I just want to shut these guys up. And so Q, seeing that this Anon is not actually seeking the truth, obliges him in his whatever you want to call that, right? And just says no. So like that doesn't that's not, you can't use that to say Q says the Earth is not flat.
Again, I can agree with you on that, John Q, and not even, being a Anon myself, that I think that is a tactic that the Most High uses with people as well. That it's like when people want to hear something, he's like, okay, that's what you want to hear. I actually excuse me, because I see so many people when the way that the Ruach HaKodesh works, and even in convicting people, is that when people they're like, they don't want to hear something. Some new possible truth comes out, and that the Ruach just kind of, or the Most High, whoever's doing it, just like he kind of just hands them over to their desires, and he just darkens their visions. It's like, hey, God, I want to go to sleep. Okay, there you go. You can go to sleep. And I think that happens an awful lot. It's one of the things I found that when take the flat Earth, for example. When the flat Earth started to make headway back in 2015, you had a lot of ministries, particularly Torah ministries. I say Torah because Rob Skiba was he was just on the loose with his investigation, and he had a lot of connections to the Torah community, and a lot of ministries were freaking out over this, and they were putting their foot down and going, we do not like the flat Earth. We want nothing to do with it. Some of them were like, we don't even want flat Earthers in our church. And those same ministries to this day, they haven't changed their opinion. They're still anti-flat Earth. Almost a decade later, it's like, what are you guys waiting on, right? You see the same thing with Enoch when the Book of Enoch is presented. Oh, this is false theology. This is whatever. Just throwing all you pull out your Scrabble words of Christian insults and stuff, and they still are anti-Enoch. And so it's one of those things. This is why I've been trying to be open about QAnon, is to not. Because I see people get shut down to the desires of their heart, and I don't want that to be the case. If this is the truth, I want to be open to it and not just shut it down. So yeah, anyways, just in response to that, I could totally see what Q is doing there strategically, and just letting him hear what he wants to hear. I get it. Rebecca, was there any other questions?
We've hit the 3-hour mark, and I'm not sure. Did we cover de-evolution? I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Patrick had asked if you could explain how de-evolution fits into the Q drops, the short season, and the Millennial Kingdom.
So we can make
goodness, that's a whole show.
Yeah, so we can make this the last question. Do you guys have like just a quick summing up response to that, like in a minute or something?
Man, I don't know if there can be a minute response. That's a deep question. So devolution is a theory that's supported by a whole lot of stuff about a sort of a continuity of government operation that we are currently in, where the federal government is essentially devolved. And so at a high level, that kind of you can almost see how that could relate to the Millennial Kingdom ending, where as the rebellion advanced, would the resurrected saints, those who are running the government of the war, there was obviously there are nations that stream up, but the Millennial Kingdom, would there be some sort of similar kind of continuity of government operation happening, that as the rebellion advanced and the kingdom shrank, something was put in place that would eventually lead one day to checkmate on the enemy? And that's the kind of the thing. There's like, you can see mirrors and parallels, and I like to say that Yah has weaved an epic tale throughout the entire his story, and I think that now we're at the end of that, at the final chapter. He's going to be pulling in all kinds of threads and things from his entire story that he's written into this grand finale. And so you're going to see things that are happening now that may have mirrored what, or are a reflection of, or something, clues to what went on in the Millennial Kingdom, or towards the end of it, or what have you, or at the beginning of it. And you're also going to see things, clues and ties to, like, Moses, the Exodus, or Esther, or you name it. Like, you can just pull in all kinds of threads, and that's one of them. But it's a really, really deep and complicated topic.
Okay, well, with that, we have been on, believe it or not, guys, for 3 hours, and I think I'm going to end it officially here. I want to thank both of you, John Q and Nephilim Hunter, or as John Q calls you, Neph, for coming on and just being very informative. I really appreciate it, and I know both of you were kind of questioning whether you should or not. I'm glad you decided to. I hope it was good for you guys as well. I really think that, as I was telling you guys, now is the time to have this talk. I really feel like it was just, the time is right for it. So we can continue this discussion in the general voice chat. If you guys want to stick around, if you guys want to turn out for the night, you both have families. I have family, and we have to. I know what it is to have to get up in the morning when your children wake up. So you can stay up till 3 a.m. if you want, but when they're up, you're up. So anything last you guys want to say in conclusion?
Again, thank you, Noel, for having these discussions. I think they're good to have. I look forward to absolutely doing more of them. I'm open to it.
Definitely open to it in the future as well. And yeah, Noel, you just giving out your platform like this, and to spark conversation and spark that thought that of what's going on, and just to give that hope and that the message of salvation in Russia. And thank you, man. Really appreciate your platform to us.
All right. Well, thank you guys one last time, and that'll be it. So shalom, everybody, and we'll do this again in a couple nights. I'll be, I think, this Sabbath, I'll be starting my study on the Gospel of Peter, Bezorah Kifa. So hope you guys all come back for that, 7 p.m. And good night, everybody.